Hello guys, and welcome back to Leah's Lifestyle. We're at it again with Chapter 2 in Payback Time by Phill. This is Mutual Funds Investing Making No Sense. I just want to say excuse me for the mess. We just got a new bed and we have not gotten rid of the old bed nor the box because my cats are enjoying playing with it. So please try to ignore all that, even though I just definitely most pointed it out to all of you if you hadn't already noticed it. So from the homework before, you were supposed to read Chapter 2. And in Chapter 1, it asks at the very end that you go and find your number. And so hopefully you have used the link that's down below that in the other video to go to the website so you can click in your little numbers, and down below the numbers, you might be like, oh, where is it? Because I was like that at first. Oh, shoot. I completely forgot. Sorry. Ew, homework. A, that's how it works. Okay. I'm just going to give myself a little thing here. And if you're like wondering, oh, where's my number? I put my numbers in. I looked for the number. I did that too. It's just down below. It shows like what it is in a normal situation and then what it is with the rule number 1. So that way you can see the difference between where your investment is at now and where it could be in the future if you do the rule 1 investing style. So just make sure to check that out if you want to know. Like he said, it's a good thing to have a plan. But without further ado, let's get into Chapter 2. So on page 1, we're talking about 401ks and our IRAs. And he's saying, let me not use like. He said, 401ks and IRAs are set up for fund administrators and managers to take 2/3 of your money, not stockpilers. No, they don't have time for luxury or waiting to find these funds. And I did do a bit of research, which I will talk about more down below. But you should know that based on what I could find, this is generically true, no matter how they try and push it towards you or what they say is actually happening. The way that it adds up over time, especially longer term, it definitely looks like they are taking more of your money like at that point. So just so you know, 401k, IRA, mutual funds, administrators and managers, long term will take 2/3 of your money. I have checked into that, and I will have all the links of the research that I have down below for you guys to look at. Page 2, you don't get what you pay for. 401k managers and administrator fees on let's see, what did I say here? That's a weird word. On average, I like split average, so it's like average. I don't know why I spelled it like that. On average, 25%, whether they make you money or not. In 2008, fund managers took about $100 billion in fees, 40% on lowering your retirement, and 25% fees robs you of 60 to 70% of expected gains. Then after retirement, they keep taking. So I did look into this a bit, and during that time frame, that is absolutely true. In fact, it might have been a little bit more because they also were paying out bonuses at that point in time based on how well short term it looked like they were doing. They didn't do long term, so it's very possible that they got paid even more. Also, I'm going to have to do a much longer video on this section. So at some point, you'll probably see something outside of us reading this book, of me making a video. I need to look into the way that they have it online and the way that they show it on their SEC and everything. They use an expense ratio, and that's proving that it's been going down over the few years. And their expense ratio, by their math and by like whatever they're using to prove that, has been going down. The thing is that expense ratio is not just the fees that they charge for their effort and how much they take out of your retirement and that they use from that. It is a bunch of other numbers added and minused from each other. So a part of that is how much it costs to run the company. And so that number could be coming down just because of the fact that it costs less to run these operations now, right? It's much cheaper to have computers. It's much cheaper to have internet. It's much cheaper to pay AI over paying people to do a bunch of the work. So they're not having to pay as many underlings to do the work that these managers otherwise would have had to be doing, because the managers weren't really actually doing it. They were just, they're essentially like car salesmen. So that's what their job is to convince you that they can make much money for you, and that's typically what they do, is advertise and stuff like that. On top of that, advertising could be getting cheaper as well, doing it in different ways, so they don't have to put as much money. So all of those things getting cheaper could bring down this expense ratio. The issue is that it's very, 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 very difficult to find that information. And so I'm going to, hopefully, futurely, I hope you do, find all that information, and I want to just see if it's actually true. So at this moment, we're going to go, because all the other information I could find on what the fees are like, they still have, the different fees. There's tax fees, there's administration fees, there's management fees. Like, I can't remember, there was like 2 other fees. So there's like at least 5 different fees that you're paying. The only ones that were different was this alternative type of 401k that they set up. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the future, but essentially it says that there's no front end or back end fees, which I think that means there's no fees for setting it up or ending like the transaction of having your money in there. So on top of all these other fees, I learned that there are fees to even start the 401ks and the IRAs. And if you want to clean them out, there's even more fees, right? So there's an alternative where you don't have to do those. But even in that one, it said there's still a yearly fee on top of the management and administration and all the other fees that they could come up together. So it's very possible that they just added fees, but lowered the cost of how much it costs them to run the situation. So that's something we'll have to look forward to in the future to truly find out. For now, we're just going to trust Phill Town and generically what I found on the internet. Page 3. Example. You put $1,000 in your 401k at 20 years of age, adding $1,000 a year till you are 85. Broad market mutual fund, top 30% performance, actors S&P 500 match about 8%. Fees management 1%, market 0.05%, administration 0.005%. Accumulating 1.3 million in retirement, but without the fees it would have been 3.7 million. 1.3 million with fees, 3.7 million. That is definitely at least 2/3 of your entire retirement. You could be sitting way prettier, going on way better vacations, having a much better end of life experience if you had not paid those fees. Page 4. Fees add up slowly, not till 40 years are onward do they really affect. By 65, fees remove half of your retirement. By 90s, 2/3. So it's really like inclining at the very end. They're taking even more. And I'm sure that has something to do with the compounding effects. Page 5. Fees are for active management. If they only match the market, you are paying for nothing. Absolutely nothing. And majority of them, which I did do the research, because he says studies say that 4% of management, only 4% of management beat the stock. So only 4% is what he said of market managers can beat the stock market. And I looked into it, and it is actually probably more like less than 1%. Like now, comparatively. Maybe in 2008, 4%, but now from what I can find is like less than 1% of market managers that can actually perform better than the market. And he also says managers put a lot of this extra money that they're getting from your funds into vacations, tuitions, ads, marketing, dinners. He has a bunch of extra things. I couldn't really find anything on that per se, because like I don't think we're allowed to look into people's personal finances right? That's not something we're not allowed to like see as regular people. So I'm not sure about that one. We have to take his word for it. I don't know where else the money would be going. And I feel like there is, if we watch movies and stuff, there is quite a bit of people who believe that people in the stock market spend their money on drugs and their kids and tuition and nice cars and fancy houses and going out and, you know, checking out that CEO and taking him to dinner and golf. So I think it's very, very likely. Page 6. Financial pornography. Bow, chicka, wow, wow. Okay. Statistics used to mislead you by mutual funds. 1. Funds managed by some of the most. This is what they say. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. He's saying that, first off, I want to say, I think he's right, and the statistics manager and the statistics that use against us, and I think this because of the fact of what we found earlier in the research, where they were saying that, oh yeah, the expense ratio is going down, so that means we're charging you guys less. Where when I looked into what the expense ratio was, it wasn't just the fees and stuff they were getting. It was like how much things cost to run the whole entire operation, billing, paying, all that stuff. So it's like, it's much more than the fees that they get, and that makes it very unclear if whether or not the reason it's going down is because they're charging less or they're taking less. And I really don't think that's the case. We live in a capitalist society, so I really don't think that's the case. And so just based on that, I agree with this, but he has some examples, ones that I didn't find on the internet because I'm kind of just trusting that he saw these. One, a company said, a fund managing situation place said that their fund had some of the most experienced professionals, and maybe that's why they offer 4 to 5 star funds. He said that they have more funds to offer top rated funds because they have more funds to offer to make those funds. And he's even said he checked the rating of their record and their percentage of their percentage of total funds, and was like, yeah, you have a lower percentage comparatively to everybody else recently. So that doesn't make any sense that you're saying you have a bunch, but your rate of success is much lower than everybody else's. And then another company said, growth investing is making a comeback. It never went out of style. What was that? Oh, thank you. Oh, you're so sweet, Mason. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Why'd you do that? You're so kind. I hope you're doing well. But he said that the flagship fund, like this specific company that said this, investing never went out of style and it's making a comeback. He said that their flagship fund peaked in 2000 and then 8 years later was down 40%, which doesn't make any sense. How could it have made a comeback if you're making less in 8 years after your peak? So that made sense to me. I didn't know what companies he was talking about, so there's no way I could have looked to find these. But based on what I had found earlier, I can't imagine that he's lying about these situations. Also, this was back in 2008, so it's 2026, guys. That's 20 some, a little less than 20 years too late to be trying to find that information, I feel like. And then he says, on average, when the market drops in a year, it takes 3 to 4 years to come back up to where it was at. I checked into this to make sure that what he was saying was true, and it's somewhat true. In a bear market, if it drops over 30%, it does take about 3 to 4 years to come back. In a market that only drops 10%, it takes weeks, maybe days. 20% or less takes maybe a year, maybe 2 years. So it kind of just depends on how much the market drops. I understand the reason why he was saying this was because in context he was talking about a bear market, but I don't think most people reading the book would understand that. I think if they ever saw like the market drop, they'd be like, oh my gosh, like it's going to take years for it to come back. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew and understood and was clear that it's a bear market that drops more than 30%, takes 3 to 4 years to come back to the point in which that it was when it dropped. He continues saying, mutual fund companies are not stockpilers or investing businesses. They are asset collection businesses called AUM, Asset Under Management. And I looked into that information, and he is right. All mutual funds and other companies like this that invest for you, that have managers that manage your funds for you, your 401ks and all that, they are written as AUMs, Asset Under Management. They're not written down as investment or stockpiling or growth money or anything like that. So they have under no legal legislation, like any laws or anything to actually make you any money. That's not a part of it. They just manage your money and you pay them to manage it, whether it's good or bad. Page 7. Found company owners in cash get... Oh, this is about fund managers. Fund company owners in cash get 20% of AUM. So if you own an AUM, or if you built an AUM and you've collected about $50 billion from people around you so that you can manage, and you want to go and sell it now, or you want to go and become on the stock market in public, your stock, and it's stocked public stock now, you get 20% of that. And so out of 50 billion, you would get 10 to 18 billion of cash in your own pocket of other people's money that they gave you to manage for them. Is this a stock? He asked this question. Is this a stockpiling business for raising money, or a raising money business? And to me, it sounds like a raising money business. Like if you create a business where you pile in 50 billion of other people's money, and then if you sell it or go public with it, and then you get to keep 20%, that doesn't sound like a business that's trying to raise money for me, my future, my retirement. That sounds like a money that's trying to raise money for them, you know? AUM requires advertising to sell the dream, but no promises on delivery. So, like I was just saying, no promises on delivery. Then he talks about Peter Lynch, which I've looked into Peter Lynch before, and I thought he was a good self-investor. I also found out that he was a Fidelity manager during that time, which he does talk about. And one of the books that I have read in the past that we'll read in the future is One Up on Wall Street. But Phill does talk about in this section that he used to speak very much just like him and other Rule 1 investors and value investors, but that once he became the Fidelity manager, he kind of zipped his lips on that. So if that doesn't give you any suspicion, then what else should? He continues, in 2008, did the people who brought the derivatives market down a meltdown pay out bonuses even though they lost huge portions of retirement funds? And that is very true. That is very, very, very true. I double checked that information. It is kind of scary how true it is. And like I said a little bit earlier, it's because their bonuses are paid out on short term and not long term. So if long term they lose you a bunch of money, it's whatever. But if short term they make it look like they're making you money, even in a downturn economy and even a bear market, that's okay. That's all right. They're going to get some of your money anyways because they made it look like they're doing good. In 2008, there was bankruptcies or sells of Merrill Lynch, Bear Stearns, and Lehman Brothers. And I double-checked that information. Merrill Lynch was acquisitioned by or merged with Bank of America, and Bear Stearns was acquisitioned by JP Chase, and Lehman Brothers was bankrupt. Then he also said that Goldman and JP Morgan got payouts with taxes. I double checked that. Goldman got 10 billion in our taxes. JP Morgan got 25 billion. And this was underneath a TARP legal saving act. They created one specifically just for this situation to save these banks. So I'm not sure what the bad side out of, like, this is something I'd have to do more research in. I'm not sure what the negative consequences would have been for if our government chose not to do that for these banks. But I'm also curious what could have been done with the funds, $35 billion worth, if they didn't use our tax money to bail them out. I did remember as a kid hearing something about that, but I really didn't understand what that meant at the time, so I paid it no attention. Page 8. Shouldn't the mutual fund managers Shouldn't the mutual fund managers have a better understanding of what happens in the stock compared to the average person? This is a question he asks. Then why did they encourage us to buy stock before it got ugly? And he's talking about 2007 into 2008. In 2000, Merrill Lynch said 940 businesses were good to buy and only 7 to sell. Sonoma said 856 businesses were good to buy and 4 to sell. First Boston said 791 businesses were good to buy and 9 to sell. Morgan Stanley said 780 businesses were good to buy and you shouldn't be selling any. And just remember that was right before the market fell 90%. And I even see this today in our very high overrated economy and stock market at the moment. There are companies I'm looking at and I'm very excited to buy at some point, but they are super overpriced. And so I'm waiting for them to come down someday and for me to have the funds to do so. But nonetheless, I wouldn't buy them because I know that they're overpriced at the moment. But if you look on any website on whether or not they are good to buy, they will almost all say yes. Right now, they are so encouraging you to buy Tesla. They are so encouraging you to buy, what is the new one that Elon just came out with, that he just went live with. Goodness, I can't remember it. Why can't I remember it? I can. You can remember it. It's in there. My brain wants to say Star Trek, but that's not true. But you know what I mean. The one that's, yeah. Anyways, if I remember it, I'll say it. But anyways, these companies, Nvidia, while it was going up to this tip top, same thing, right? Buy now. This is a great time to buy. But why would you buy at the peak of what something costs? When something new comes out, new phone, new shoes, Starlink, that's it. Thank you, Mason. If anything new that we buy comes out, there's going to be people that are going to buy it at the top price, of course. But most people, I think, logically understand to buy those products maybe next year, maybe in 6 months, maybe once somebody who's bought it and does realize they don't want it, sells it to you barely used, right? That is when you buy it because you want it a little bit cheaper. You know you can get it a little bit cheaper if you wait. So why do we not do the same thing with stock? It's just my curiosity around this. I know it might be a little bit longer term than most people want to think about it. They're like, oh, I don't want to wait a month, 2 months, a year to buy this stock. But if you buy it in its climacticity, then you're going to for sure lose money when the stock drops. And especially ones that are extremely overpriced. We've seen this before. You're always going to lose money. It happened with Yahoo Finance, where it got brought up really high and people, like, it had almost 1,000-year chance, like in 1,000 years you'll make your money back, and then it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and no one's ever made their money back on that, and no one ever will, right? And we don't know for certain that these new AI companies or Nvidia is going to last for hundreds of years, and if they're going to keep going up and up and up, that is a huge guess. That is gambling. And so I think it's just one of those things where we have to be realistic a little bit, especially when you're taking your own money into your hand and you're not handing it over to managers to manage for you is you have to realize that when you buy into these companies, why would somebody who supposedly knows more, right, these fund managers, want that for you? Why would they throw into these companies going up? And it's just because of the way their job works and the way that their portfolio has to function so that they can get their bonuses. Anyways, I went off on a little bit of rant there. He even talks about here, Enron was a good one. Right before it went bankrupt, 14 investment companies said, buy. It's time to buy. Not to sell, but to buy Enron. And then what happened with Enron? Boo! And no one ever got their money back because it went bankrupt. How many said get out in the late 2007s? None. Why? Because they are not investing companies. They are AUM companies, which means they just want your funds. They just want you to put all your money, as much as they can, into the bank so they can do what they please with it. Not because they want to make you a millionaire. Not because they want to make sure you are comfortable in the future. They just want to be able to buy their nice cars and to get their bonuses and to look like their portfolios are going up, 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 up. And the more funds they have, the more they can do that with. Your Number. Book. The Number by Lee Einsberg, which one we're going to check out and read. In here, Phill Town talks about, in his book, there's 4 types, not in Phill Town's book, but in The Number of Lee, there's 4 types of people: the procrastinator, the plucker, the plotter, and the prober. He all explains these shortly, but since we're going to read this book, I didn't want to get too much into that, so that way we can enjoy it when we read that book. Page 9. Number example. A couple of 50... what is this? A couple has 50,000 to invest and 10,000 every year thereafter in a mutual fund at 88% for 20 years. 690,000, then they keep it at 5% bonds, spends 50,000 a year with inflation without running out of money. Oh, with inflation, they will run out of money within 5 years. Then he explains how that works. On page 10. 2009 to 2029 equated $109,000. Will buy... Why does it say will buy? Hold on. My handwriting's not the best all the time when I'm getting fast with it. Bad, Leah. Bad, Leah. I need to take better notes. Nicer notes. It's not better notes. Nicer notes. I need to be easier on my reading eyes. When you can't read your own writing, that's an issue. Okay, let's see here. 609,000 in bonds, 5 years, equals 25,000 with supplement with the bonds. Okay. I shorthanded this. Why did I do that? Bad, Leah. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so he's trying to explain here, and then that what I understand from it, from my own dumb notes and remembering of actually reading the book, which I hope you did, so that way you're not fully relying on me right now for this section, is that if you want to pull out 50,000 from your 690,000 and put that 690,000 in 5% bonds, at the end of the year you will get 25,000 bonds, or $25,000 from the 6,900. So that 5% that you received, the 25,000, will need to be supplemented because you're going to need 50,000 for the year, right? So you're going to need another 25,000. So you're going to need to pull that from your 401k, the 6,900, right? And when you do that, you can't just pull out the 25,000. You're going to have to pull out more than that because there's going to be taxes on it. And so they're going to take about 25%. So the amount that you will need to pull out so that you can have that 25,000 is 122,000. 6,900 minus 112,000 is 578,000. That's just the first year. And you do that again and again and again and again. That is your 6,000 right there. So you would not last 5 years with $690,000. That's just the way it is. Page 11. Want to retire into 2029 on $50K a year in 2009 money? Live to 95? No extra reliance? You will need $3,600,000. And that was from 2009, right? We've had a 3% increase. And this was living in 2029. So now probably in the future, thinking 30, 40 years from now, you're going to need $4-5 million to be able to retire. That's a huge number. That's a huge fucking number you will need. But just think about it. Like, if you want to buy a house right now, a house, 1 or 2 bedroom, maybe a little over 1,000 square feet in the backyard, in a nice area, at least $1 million. At least. Probably 1.5 to be honest. But at least $1 million on a good day. Trust me, I've looked. At least in my area. I don't know what it's like. There's some areas that are much more expensive than where I'm at, you know? I'm not living in California. I'm not in New York City, so I don't know those numbers. But it's worse in some areas. It's better in others, right? But, I mean, I guess it depends on where you want to live. Page 12. Making money when the market looks crazy. 2009 melted 14,500 to 6,600. And this is the stock number. You know, when you're looking up on the stock and it says, like, where the number's at. I think right now it's at 30,000, something like that. A loss of 50%, but then a bit after 2009, similar to the at 1998, or your retirement would have moved wouldn't have moved for 10 years. So the fact that 2009 looked like number was right where 1998 was, he's saying, like, even if during that time frame it had gone up, if you had not sold at the peak and you left it in the mutual funds, then it looks exactly the same. Your money hasn't grown at all. If you make 0% of return from 1998 to 2009, want your 8% back, the market would need to go up 19%, putting Dow Jones Industrial Average, DJIA, 45,000 for 9 years. And I looked into it just so everyone knows. We have reached over the 45,000 now, right? But the problem is it's only been like that since 2005. We did reach 45, I think, the year before that. So we've been at 2 years of where the market needs to be for you to make your money back, leaving it in the mutual funds, from where it was at in 1998. So your last 2 years, anyone who hasn't moved their money from their mutual funds are just now making their money back in the last couple of years. Just now. From what they had made, if they hadn't sold before the crash in 2008. That's blew my fucking mind. And you can go look that up. Just go look at the S&P 500. Pull up all. Put your scanner over 2008, right? And then it slowly ekes up. It's like 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, 8. And it kind of just ekes up. 14, 13, 15, 14. It goes up, nice and slow. And then the last few years, last 5, I think, it's a really shot up, right? But it's only been like the last 2 or 3 now that we've been over that 45,000 number. and where people from 2008 who hadn't moved their money at all from their 401ks, left it with the mutual funds, would just now be making money back, that 8% back from 1998. That's a long time, guys. That's a long time. And a lot of those people should be getting ready to retire now, if they hadn't already been thinking about it. So, man, that I couldn't even imagine. The bulls and the bears. Bear markets equals not reached previous market, and bull markets are high points. I knew that. I think most people knew that, but I just want to make sure that people do know that. Page 13 has 1998 to 1928, 2026. I put a slash there because he's using 2028, but we're really close, so I looked at the time frames from now. Been more than 1% return on average, and technically, from what I found on the internet, from 1998 to 2026, we've had a total of about a 28.34% return on average. If you take all the ups and all the downs, about a 28% return since 1998, which isn't bad. That's actually really fucking good. So his guess was that we wouldn't be doing more than 100%. I think he was expecting a really worse turn, but we went up pretty hard the last 5 years, and I think that's what's done it. So not too bad overall. I'm not sure how that would look for people who were in mutual funds, right? Because even though we get 28% overall, we know for a fact that the majority of people who are managing the funds don't even make this. They can't even beat this. So most mutual funds aren't even doing this. So you have to expect maybe half that, and then they're taking a third of whatever you make off that. So even though that number sounds really good, that's just like the overall market, right? Okay, page 14. What a bear's trampoline can do. Sorry. He guessed that we will yo-yo the DJIA between 14,000 and 6,000. And I checked it out, and we passed 14,000 in 2013. So, and it's been up, kind of like up since then. So it wasn't as much of a yo-yo as he was expecting. We did kind of, it would go 6,000, 7,000, 6,000, 7,000. It did like a little bit. But honestly, from 2009 to 2013 to finally passing the 14,000 mark, I don't think that's a bad turnaround, right? Right, 19, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's the 4-year mark. That's the 4-year mark that he said. So it did what it was supposed to do. 1965 to 1983 lost 45%. 45% drop of 14,500 is 8,000. The Great Depression stock market dropped 55 from 375 more dropped to 55 from 375, more than 85%. 85% drop of 14,500 is 2,175. A long-term down market, while 1965 to 1983 is good timing to plant seeds. The thing is that didn't happen. We didn't keep dropping. We actually went back up. So his guess and his ideas of what the worst conditions could be did not happen to us, which was good, and we went back up. Page 14. But he is saying, like, when it does drop, when it does do things like that, like during the Great Depression, during 2008 crash, it is good to have the funds to be able to buy things cheap. Page 14. Ben Graham made millions in 1930 to 40s during the Great Depression. Warren Buffett made billions in 1970s to the 80s in a stagflation. As an investor, we need to be able to make money during any time of the economy, but especially during the times of trouble and turmoil. What you can do right now: switch from mutual funds to spiders, SPY. 0.8% fees versus 1.3% or more, paying $8 or $200 or more. So essentially getting into an SPY or an index fund, or even just sitting it in a 6 to 8% high investment yield account would be much better than relying on the mutual funds. Page 15. SPY moves with the S&P 500 because it goes up or down 20%, so does the SPY. At least you wouldn't have to pay fees. Trading tool. And then, there's a trading tool he had us look into, which I did a little research about. And the trading tool is the moving average, and it shows trends over a period of time. I think that's what I'm going to have to do a whole nother video on, as well as learning how to use it, what it looks like, it sounds like different types of trading tools. That trading tool are on different websites, so it kind of depends on who you have for your account that you're trading through. So I'll do some more research into that. That will be a second video we'll hopefully do in the future. Okay, I didn't take any notes from page 16. Page 17, George Miller was this is somebody he's talking about, was a Democrat, a California Democrat, and chairman of the House of Education and Labor. And he was trying to pass legislation to make sure that all plans offered one index fund. Unfortunately, I did research on this because I thought that sounded great. I was like, oh, dang, if I can, do that, well, why shouldn't I do that for a short period of time until I can have enough money to start doing it on my own, right? But that didn't happen. This is what I was going to tell you guys about. So it did not go through. They did not allow that to happen. And instead of having index funds available for people in their 401k and for mutual managers to use so that they couldn't take as much fees, they added a no-load mutual fund, which is just there's no major payments before and after sales. Like the initial putting in the money and taking out the money. Like there's no fees for that. But there were still the original fees of the managing and the why can't I remember the word? Administrator fees, and there was like an I-15 tax fee, and there's the yearly fee, and there's also the trading fees. So I mean, you're still getting feed up like crazy. So it's whatever. Okay, and then the homework. So 96% of mutual fund managers cannot beat the market. Double check that information. It's completely true. And so the homework is, besides reading chapter 3, is invest in ETFs and market index. Calculate how much you need to retire, which again, I left down below in the links, so please go find that. And until next time, guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell icon so that way you know every single time when I post. Leave a comment. What did you think about this one? I feel like I'm kind of enjoying this book much more than I was expecting so far, and I'm really excited. In the next chapter, we're going to learn how to start actually valuing companies, and we'll see how that supports me trying to value companies, because I'm in the middle of valuing Decker. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye.